Dylan, do you know the capital of Brazil?
Rio.
No.
No?
I knew you were going to say that. It's Brasilia. I'm serious.
That's like Quebec's capital's Quebec City.
Shout out Canada.
What a scam. It's Rio.
Anyways, today we are doing our top 10 Brazilian UFC fighters current right now, not Anderson Silva. We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's start with honorable mentions because there's a lot of Brazilian fighters in the UFC. A lot of up and comers, but also a lot of champions as well.
Yeah.
Or former champions. So honorable mentions, dude. Talison Teixeira almost made my list, and I'm not kidding.
He's close.
The way that he dismantled...
I actually didn't know that he was Brazilian. I didn't even consider him. I didn't even touch heavyweight.
The way that he dismantled Justin Taffa needs to be studied.
Okay.
And also, did his fight against Derek Lewis get canceled? Because it's not on the UFC anymore.
Who knows?
I don't know. Heavyweight's in a mess. My other honorable mentions, Paulo Costa.
Oh, he didn't even get an honorable mention.
Still close, in the rankings. I don't think he wins against any good fighters. And then Mauricio Rufy. Good fighter, but I don't think he's quite at the level.
Yeah, I have Burns. Gilbert Burns. We can shout out Hilbert too.
Hilbert.
Shout out Hilbert.
Herbert. Wait, no, it's Herbert. All right, Hilbert.
Whatever it is. And then also Mauricio Rufy.
Yeah.
He was my number 11, first man off the list.
Okay, my number 11 was Prates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Prates don't got that aura anymore.
Okay.
I think in the 5th round he could have finished Ian Gary, but he was having like flashes of cigarettes and he couldn't focus. He was going through withdrawals.
Mid-round dart. I'm interested to see that you don't have Prates.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also one of those lists where there's a high chance we forgot someone similar to our 35 and older video.
Definitely. Okay. Number 10. Do you want to start us off this time?
Yeah. Switching it up. I have Money Moicano here. I think that he's actually a little bit, maybe potentially underrated right now. He was on such a great run. And then obviously what happened in that Islam fight, that was a massacre. Like that was just mass murder on Moicano in his whole career.
Yeah. It's so sad.
But he was on an upward trajectory. That's a little stumble in the road. He had a flat tire. I still do think Moicano is a good UFC fighter.
Yeah, he deserves to be in the rankings. I think he's very on that top 10 cusp of lightweight, and he could win against a Dariush.
Exactly.
It's a very close fight. My number 10 spot is going to be Gilbert Burns.
Okay.
He's on that downward spiral.
Yeah.
After what I've seen from him in the JDM fight, which he lost, and then brutally got just destroyed by Sean Brady, and now he's going up against probably the biggest prospect in that bottom half of the welterweight rankings now that Prates has lost, Michael Morales, and that's coming up really soon.
Yeah. I thought that fight already happened for some reason. It feels like it's been booked for 6 months. I think it's been
getting pushed back.
Yeah.
So I think he probably loses that fight as well. And after that, it's like, okay, you're 38. How many more years do you want to be fighting in the UFC, fighting these up and coming guys? Because when you're on a losing streak, the UFC ain't doing you much favors. Maybe he gets booked up against another old head, but then it's like that doesn't push you up in the rankings. And I think for a guy like Gilbert Burns, is he gonna want to just take a lot of damage? I'm not sure. I think he's into coaching as well, so maybe he just wants to kind of carry that a little bit.
He's into that. Yeah, I respect the Gilbert Burns pick there.
Yeah.
I think that's the only guy that, you had Prates off as an honorable mention. I had Burns off, I think. And then we should have hopefully the same list of guys. I really hope I didn't forget anyone obvious.
Who knows?
But my number 9 guy, this is where I have Prates. Obviously he got that loss, but he did show flashes. He's up against Ian Gary, a guy who was Shavkat's first decision win. I think people discredit Ian Gary because he's kind of a meme. He's kind of a joke. People love to hate on the guy, but he is a really good UFC fighter, and he's been in the UFC for a while. He's had a lot of good wins. He's had a long career for how young he is. He's only 26, and he's been in the UFC for a while, established a resume. So Prates in his first true fight inside the rankings up against a top contender, he lost, but I still do have some faith in Prates. I still think that he is better than a lot of the Brazilian fighters that we were on our honorable mentions. But maybe he's in that tier 2 of welterweight, not the tier 1 of elite guys for now.
Yeah. Any other division, he'd probably be in the upper echelon, but welterweight just has way too many guys. All right, my number 9. This is where I got Money Moicano.
Okay.
Similar to you, he has a very strong skill set, but he's very old now. I don't see him moving up into that top 5 or, top 7 is even a push right now because of how many guys are coming up. I like his ground game, very strong. What he did to BSD, who does that to BSD? Yeah, like even Dustin Poirier, it looked like Dustin Poirier's getting thrown around by BSD, and then Moicano just dominates him in the first round. And then I would say he has decent IQ. He played it very smart in that second round. He knew that cut was bad, just jabbed it up and got the doctor's stoppage. I like his chances against a lot of those guys in that 15-10 range, and then also against a guy like Dariush. Those are the guys who I think he has a chance against. Other than that, I mean, what else is there left for him to do? He's been in featherweight for so long. Now he's in lightweight. He's getting older. He has a podcast now, but I think he's still going to keep fighting because he wants that money. That's his big motivator.
Now he's a big ticket item. He fought for a champion.
True.
Title contender.
Former title challenger, Money Moicano.
Exactly.
They'll market the shit out of that.
All right, next up, my number 8. Maybe this is a hot take to have this guy so low, but I'm famous for being pretty low on this guy. It's Kyle Barajo here at number 8.
You are famous for that.
I just think that everyone ahead of him has maybe more potential right now. Like in their next fight, do I think Barajo can go and beat anyone above him? I do think...
Probably not.
I mean, there's guys like Whitaker and Strickland who I think he could compete with. I think still, I like Adesanya in a fight against him just because I think Barajo's defense is so weak.
Is Adesanya right above him?
I think that he's 4 and Barajo's 5.
Okay.
And maybe Whitaker's 5. But yeah, he's up in that top 6-ish. But I just never see this guy becoming champion with Imavov, Hamzat, and DDP all in that division. If they're all still there, I just don't see Barajo ever becoming champion.
Yeah, especially with how much damage Cannonier was able to put on him.
Yeah, he just doesn't play defense.
Yeah, that cut was gnarly in that fight. Okay, my number 8 fighter. So I got Jailton Almeida.
Okay.
Right above Moicano. This one I went back and forth a couple times because I feel like Moicano has better striking. Like neither of them are good strikers, let's be honest. But Moicano you have to have a well-rounded skill set in lightweight. But I think the heavyweight to lightweight discrepancy in terms of like overall skill sets for divisions, you got to lean Jailton Almeida for how good he is at one thing and how he's able to dominate everyone in that one thing. Other than Curtis Blades, the dude submitted everyone that he's faced. So like he's so freaking good, especially for a heavyweight. I think he has so much time to work on his skill set as well. He's one of the few athletic heavyweights, and I think that's going to carry him a very long way. I'm pretty high on him. I've always been high on him, and I think in a rematch with Curtis Blades or in a matchup with Sergey Pavlovich, I think he's going to be in that top 4 or 5 heavyweights in his next fight.
Yeah.
Like he deserves it, and he's dangerous for pretty much anyone, even Tom.
Yeah. All right, my number 7. This is where I have Davison Figueiredo, the 2-division fighter, former flyweight champion, had that the quadrilogy against Moreno there, had a bunch of awesome ones at flyweight. Then he moves up to bantamweight and still continues to be a good fighter with how small he is, but that just proves how good he is. Very well-rounded with the elite power.
Yeah.
I don't think he could beat guys at the top. I don't think he ever beats a Merab and Umar, a Sean, or a Peter Yan, but you give him those Sanhagens, the Yadongs, he can compete with those guys. I do think I favor him over a Sanhagen. I think I'd probably lean Yadong against him, but that's also because I'm biased.
Yeah.
But yeah, Figgy at 7 feels like a good spot for me.
That's fair. My number 7 is Kyle Barallo.
Okay.
Similar to you. I just think in terms of the fighting nerds, he's the most proven still, but I also think he has one of the lowest ceilings on him, just because if you look at the other fighting nerds, it's like, Rufy, Gene Silva, and Prates. These guys are KOing their opponents and like pretty much making fun of them. It feels like even when Kyle was coming up, other than the Paul Craig fight, which he dominated, it feels like most of his fights were very tactical, very like calculated, which is, don't get me wrong, it's a good thing. But at the same time, sometimes as a prospect, like, and a big prospect, you're like, okay, you got to like be 30-27ing these old heads.
Yeah, and like those guys, the other three seem like killers. Barajo doesn't seem like he's a killer like them, you know?
Yeah, I get what you mean. He gives off a bit of a different energy. He's
Yeah.
more of like the dad of the group.
Yeah, like as a leader. He's the leader, the calm, cool collectivist, and you just got wild Gene Silva jumping up on the cage.
Jeez, yeah. Maybe Gene Silva's coming up on this.
Yeah, maybe
list.
Barajo doesn't spam the head kick as much.
Yeah.
Number 6 for me, this is where I have Jailton Almeida. I'm very high on him. I think he is the 3rd best heavyweight in the world.
Yeah.
I think I favor him over guys like Pavlovich, Volkov, Gone, and Curtis Blades. You know, I just think that his elite jiu-jitsu, his elite ground game is just something that we don't see in that division, which gives him a clear advantage over so many different fighters. And when you're saying a guy is the 3rd best in his division behind guys like Tom Aspinall and John Jones, that's not really discrediting him. That's where, you know, you're talking about Jones and Aspinall, one of the best top 2s inside of the UFC. So to be the 3rd best guy behind those, it's like, oh, maybe we are talking about heavyweight for a minute, you know, about how bad it is, you know. But I just think that he also is going to have time to continue to develop and hone in on a skill set because the mess that's at the top, you know, he's like 3 fighters away from a title shot.
Yeah.
You know, there's 3 guys ahead of him right now, even though he's the 3rd best heavyweight in my opinion.
I think Jailton Almeida is also the first guy where we've talked about him and he has championship potential. I don't think Kyle has championship potential. I don't think any of the guys lower on the list have potential. All right, my number 6 fighter. This is where I got Figgy. Good fighter. Not elite anymore. Like you said, he's in that upper echelon of the 2nd tier of bantamweight. I don't think he has a chance against Sean O'Malley or obviously Merab or Umar. Those guys are just a little bit too far. But yeah, like Sandhagen, Rob Font, he probably wins those fights, you know. Sandhagen's a very close fight for him. And I think if you look at what he's done in his recent fights, you know, first person to knock down Chito Vera, won that fight. And then who was his the fight against Cody Garbrandt, won that fight. Like, he's had wins in both divisions and decently good name value wins as well. So respect on his name. He's still performing extremely high level at 37 when he's in the lower weight classes, which is pretty much unheard of. So,
all right, number 5. So I have Diego Lopez, former title challenger. You might also have Lopez at 5. Do you have Lopez at 5?
No.
Okay. Well, Diego Lopez, you know, we saw him go up against Volk last month, put up a good shot, a good fight, good shots. You know, he knocked down Volkanovski. He just still looked a little bit young, undisciplined, you know, and just a little bit immature in that fight. You know, he still has time. He's young. He's only been in the UFC for just over 2 years at this point now, which is such a short amount of time. The amount of fighters who have only had 2 fights in their career at that point, you know, 2 years, you know. So I still have faith in Lopez. I just think that everyone above him has a little bit higher potential or has done more currently and is a little bit better right now than Lopez. I think he needs to really hone in, clean up that striking, build up that gas tank, and really just develop a little bit more strategy while he's inside of that ring.
Yeah, that's fair. I think if before the Volk fight, he probably would have been higher for both of us.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, all right. My number 5, this is where I got Gene Silva.
You didn't do it?
What, put him number 1? No, I think he's the maybe highest ceiling Brazilian fighter on this list right now, just because he has so much time to develop and he's taking fights every couple months, and you know, he's just riding that wave, which is what you got to do as a young up and coming fighter. But if you look at the guys above him on my list, maybe Diego Lopez coming up in the future, he hasn't proven himself up against top level opponents yet. You know, Bryce Mitchell is, in my opinion, a bottom 5 ranked fighter, deservingly, and especially after what Josh Emmett has done to him and Ilya Topuria has done to him. Like, he's taken big damage in his career. You know, that changes a person. Clearly, he has CTE. He believes the earth is flat. There's something wrong with his head. But Gene Silva, sure, he has brick wall takedown defense and he has crazy power. But like we just saw with Prates, until you go up against a guy who can game plan, who's in their prime, who has a good chin, who can maybe negate some of your striking, until you go up a guy again like that and you prove that you can beat them, it's hard to say like, oh yeah, this guy's going to beat Volk. Yeah. You know, maybe Volk throws out too many kicks, too many jabs, moves too well off the back foot. Like, maybe that just completely confuses Gene Silva, and he can't get anything off. And so maybe he gets 50-45. I think that's probably unlikely, but who knows?
Yeah. All right, I have Gene Silva at number 4. I just think I had to put him over Lopez.
Yeah.
I just think I think right now you put those two in a fight is close.
Yeah.
And I think I like the potential of Silva more. We saw him go up against this guy with very underrated jiu-jitsu in Bryce Mitchell. People love to hate on him, but he has very good jiu-jitsu and just dominated him.
And the fact that he submitted him is also crazy.
Had him in multiple submission attempts, didn't even give him a chance to use this. He was willing to take this fight to the ground when he could have just kept on the feet and dominated.
For sure.
Knocked him down. He is so good. He has that killer instinct. He has everything you want out of a UFC fighter. He's very well-rounded, and as time goes on, he's probably 1 or 2 fights away from the belt, and those 1 or 2 fights are going to be huge for him to really hone in. That's 2 more training camps, before that fight, and he's just that good. He's just that guy.
He's got that dog in him.
Yeah.
My number 4 is Diego Lopez, so I'm not going to talk too much because we just flipped him around. But the reason why I have him over Gene Silva is because, like I said, he's more proven against Volk. He went to, I think it was a 48-47, right? That was our scorecards.
Yeah. Or it might have been 49-46. It was. I think 2 of them had 1 or 2 of them had 49-46. Some of them had 48-47.
Yeah. So didn't get absolutely dominated. It was a clear skill set advantage to Volk, but Lopez has that power differential and he has a great chin. He has knocked down and dominated Brian Ortega, which is a very high level fighter. So he's had a little bit more experience in high level fights compared to some of the guys lower on my list. You even look at a Jailton Almeida, has Jailton Almeida had those high-level wins? Not really. And even at heavyweight, which in my opinion doesn't even have high-level wins. So I think Lopez is just a little bit maybe... He's probably properly rated right now because I think he was a bit overrated going into the Volk fight. Mm-hmm. And now I think that it's died down a little. Maybe people start to realize, okay, Volk beats him, Movsar probably beats him, Gene Silva probably has a good fight with him. So, there's a lot of tough guys in featherweight, but in terms of skill set, has great jiu-jitsu, great takedown defense. He just stopped Volk at every turn, and pretty good strike. Good striking, but a lot of power.
And this isn't us saying that Lopez will never be champion.
Mm-hmm.
He still has very much a shot to become champion, especially
he's so young
in featherweight right now.
2 years in the UFC.
If I had to put money on, yes, he's champion, no, he's never champion, I might lean yes in that,
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah. All right, my number 3, this is where I have Charles Oliveira. Dubois, close between 3 and 2.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, same. I had Charles at 3 as well, and he was switching. Yeah.
But with Charles, you know what you're getting. It's Charles Oliveira, elite submission threat, puts on one of the best fights on every single card that he's on. It's just right now it's could he ever become champion again? And I struggle to see him becoming champion because I struggle to see him beating a guy like Islam Makhachev.
The only way he ever becomes champ, in my opinion, is if Islam vacates.
Yeah.
And then you have Topuria versus Charles. So there is possibilities, but I think the reason why I had him 3rd is because he's further away in terms of he was in his dominant reign as a champion further back than the guy ahead of him.
He's a little bit more out of his prime.
Exactly. He hasn't had those first round subs or first round KOs last year. They were a couple years ago now.
And you look at him, Michael Chandler, that fight's going the distance, where prime Charles does that in 2 rounds.
Exactly. And Chandler, we saw what Patty did to him, bro.
Exactly.
He's not that good anymore. Yeah. So we're going to have the same list now. Number 2 is Pereira.
Obviously looked the worst he had in his career up against Ankalaev. Is he too old? We don't know. I think that you really need one more fight where if Pereira looks bad to be able to really say that he's far out of his prime, that his prime's over. Mm-hmm. But I do need a little bit more because it could be an off night. You never know. It could have been an off night, and that's a very common thing that we see inside of the UFC. Fighters have bad nights, but sometimes those bad nights are just actually how bad that fighter is. We look at Leon Edwards versus Bilal, and then his next fight just looks terrible up against Sean Brady.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen with Pereira, but obviously his 2024 was elite, so
exactly.
It would hurt. It would suck to see him have a terrible 2025.
It would hurt a lot. But yeah, like you said, Pereira, I feel like he still took Ank to a 3-2 decision, whereas Charles got dominated by Makhachev.
Yeah.
You know, so I think if you look at their recent success, Pereira just has more of it against former champions.
Yeah,
you know?
and has that title shot next, like, and could win that fight.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like Jamal Hill or Yuri Prohaska or Khalil Rountree are bad fighters. You know, those are all very good title defenses. And Charles, in my opinion, you know, Michael Chandler was his last win. Other than that, he lost to Armin, and then he won against Beneil Dariush. His last 2 wins aren't nothing special. I'm going to be honest. I don't rate Dariush that highly. At the time, he was rated highly.
Yeah, he was on the up.
Yeah, but
at 35 years old.
It's one of those wins that has aged a bit bad, you know. And then number 1 is
obviously Pantoja. Everyone knows how I feel about Pantoja. 3rd best pound for pound fighter in the world, in my opinion. Completely dominated his division. You know, there's not really much else to say.
Feels like he's still in his prime.
Yeah, still in his prime. Just turned 35. We'll see what that does to him, but we've seen fighters break that curse now with Volk. So maybe the curse is gone.
100%.
Pantoja beats KKF. But yeah.
Yeah, he's just the most skilled Brazilian right now. He's in his prime. He's a champion. He's beating everyone, all the top contenders. He's already beat them multiple times. Like, it's just flyweight tags.
Yeah, they bring in fresh meat for him, he says.
I'll sub you in 2. Yeah, it's like if you put this guy in any other division, even heavyweight, he is being touted as top 2 fighters in the UFC right now.
Yeah.
The way that he's ran through every single fighter in his division.
Is that like air?
Dude,
Did
I
you
don't
use
know.
the Force? What happened to you last night at Star Wars?
My laptop just tweaked. But yeah, I think Pantoja is clearly the best Brazilian right now, and it's not close.
Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Make sure you guys go down in the comments. Let us know, who do you guys think is the best Brazilian fighter right now in the UFC, but also all time in the UFC? While you guys are down there, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing. We appreciate all the love and support, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
So yeah.